Greetings, Iain from RTO here. Welcome to another album ranking. And as you can tell, it's dark, it's dingy, but we've had some snow. Not much. I would say, looking out there now, if that's a centimetre of snow, we've done well. Trees look pretty, but it's still very dark and dingy. So lights on and carry on regardless. So first off this week is part 4 of the Gong story, and we have reached Pierre Moerlan's or Moerlen's version. That's how you pronounce it. And it says here, this is the information I got. It says, for contractual reasons, the Gong name remained in play for a few years, but the band was now effectively Pierre Moerlan's Gong, having little to do with the psychedelic space rock of David Allen's version. Moerlan formed a more mallet percussion based lineup, adding his brother Benoit Moerlen and future Weather Report percussionist Mino Seelou. Alan Holsworth was in the band at some time, Francis Mose was, Malberg joined, all sorts of people have joined until the late 80s. It first was known as Gong Expresso, and then from 1978 until the very end as Pierre Moerlan's Gong. Sadly in 2005 Pierre unexpectedly passed away. Now they've made 9 albums with Pierre, and then there is another band called another album that was a tribute to him, but it still comes under the Pierre Moerlan's Gong. So we got 9 albums to look at. So coming in at number 9, we have that tribute album just called Tribute 2010. This is the latest incarnation of Pierre Moerlan's Gong with French musicians. They started working together before his death, and they continued to do the album, and it finally got released in 2010. So there's a little bit of drumming from Pierre on the last track, but most of the drumming is done by someone called Samuel Klein. Bass is Marc Antoinette Schmidt, guitar is Sebastian Kohlherr, marimba is Matthias Krabara, percussion Babu, and vibraphone Matthias Cambra. So the first track on here is called Impatient. It's quite quirky. It's got lots of vibraphone on it, which I think is pretty cool. I like that. Then we get Septembre 02, a lovely little track again, some nice drumming on this, I don't mind that. Then we get Content Pop, really good playing on this, very good. Construction Metallique, a really jazzy sort of sound, not bad. Then there is a track just called Pierre Moerlen, lots of vibraphone, giving that tribute to Pierre's version of Gong. Le Doux Massam, not keen on this one. There's got some funky bass on it, but the rest of it's a bit bad. Doc Jungle, some nice playing on that. Then we get Backstage, my favourite track off this album. It's a vibraphone track and it's fantastic. 28th February, fantastic track. Guitar, rock guitar meets jazzy sounds, really good. La Vase du Cid RS, it's alright. Mr. Marco, some good guitar on this. Then there's this one called here 050103, great guitar and some lovely vibraphone. And then Mon Ami Babu, it's alright. And then you get this bonus track. It's a demo version of Content Pop. At the beginning of this track you get a extract from a late concert in the 1990s of Gong, where David Allen is heard introducing Pierre on the drums, and then they go at him just playing the drums on this demo, and that's the end of the album. It's not particular. Yeah, so Pierre's playing on the demo version. I do like how it speeds up though. This is a weird one. It is a good album, but it's only got the demo version of Pierre, but all the musicians on here are really good musicians. I don't mind listening to this. It was pretty good, but I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10, purely on the musicianship of the musicians, because they are terrific. Okay, we're now going into the proper more Pierre Gong, and coming in at number 8 we have Expresso II. It's the 8th album released under the name Gong, and the facto second album by Pierre Moerlan's Gong, and it was released in 1978. So we've got Pierre and Benoit Moerlen on drums, vibraphones, marimbas, tubular bells, Tiffany drums. Then we got Morelli Berrier on marimba and vibraphone, Hansford Rowe on the bass. Additional personnel: Mick Taylor, yes, the Mick Taylor, Rolling Stones fame, Alan Holdsworth, Bon Lozgoza on guitar, Daryl Way on violin, and Francois Gazeuse on congas. First track on this one is called Heavy Tune. Love the start of this. It's got some really rich drums from Pierre. That bass comes in. It's a really good track. Good guitar work on it. Then we got Golden Dilemma. Don't like this one because the drums seem to be totally out of sync with the rest of the album song. I mean, the song on the album, sorry. Seems like Pierre's gone off on one. And then we get Sleepy. Love the vibraphone on this. I really got into the vibraphone listening to these albums. A really interesting track. Solly. I don't like this. The drums and the bass are all over the place. Doesn't really make no sense, that one. Now there's a next track. It's called Boring, and in fact it is not boring at all. It's the best track on the album. I love the sound they got on this. That drumming's good, and what added to this one is that violin really is good. Best track on the track. Then we get Three Blind Mice. Really good guitar work on this again, but the drums do seem to be on a different level to anything else. What lets this album down is the drums, and Pierre is a drummer. The beats seem to be ahead of everything else. It sort of doesn't fit with the music. I don't know what they were thinking, to be quite honest, but the musicianship is pretty good on this anyway, and I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 11 is the 5th album by Pierre Moerlan's Gong, released in 1981, and it is called Leave It Oven, featuring an all-instrumental jazz-driven sound notable for the prominent use of vibraphone. So we've got Pierre Moerlan on drums, vibraphones, gong, keyboards, synthesizers, Harold Rouse, Hansford Rowe on the bass, Bon Lozgoza guitar, Francois Gazeuse on percussion. Guest musicians on here are Charlie Marino on saxophone, Des Miller on congas, and Brian Holloway on the rhythm guitar. First track on here is the title track, and it is the brilliant Leave It Open, a 17-minute epic. The vibraphone at the beginning of this reminds me of Mike Oldfield's Incantations. Then we get a proggy bit, some great guitar work on this. Fantastic track, really love that track. Then we get How Much Better It Has Become. Again, really excellent track, some great saxophone on this one. Really enjoy that one. It's a very short track but very good. Then we get I Woke Up This Morning, Felt Like Playing Guitar. Pierre's drumming is absolutely amazing on this. but what lets it stand is that horrible 80s keyboard sound that I hate, but the saxophones are pretty good. It's About Time. An interesting piece of percussion on here. It is fantastic. The bass is okay and a bit of random sax. Nothing wrong with that. Right, get this one right. Stock, 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 gack. I love this. This is very, very chilled out. Nice drumming again from Pierre. It's a soft sort of jazzy prog fusion. Really, really good. And the last track on here is called Ed Adrien. Interesting track. I like this sort of fusion sound with different sorts of percussion on it. This is a really good album. I really enjoyed listening to this. I've played it quite a few times now, especially Leave It Open. I think that's a brilliant piece of music. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.4. Okay, coming in at number 6. Now this may upset some Gong fans because everyone seems to like this one. I like it, but I like some of the other ones better. It's Gazeuse, and it is the 7th album released under the name Gong and the de facto debut album by Pierre Moerlen's Gong. It was released in 1976. So on here we've got Pierre Moerlen on the drums, vibraphone and anything that he can hit. Didier Malberg on tenor, sax and flute. Alan Holdsworth plays guitars. Pierre Boyer on marimba and vibraphone and glockenspiels. Benoit Moerlan on vibraphone. Francis Mose on fretless bass and Milo Cello does some percussion. First track here is Expresso. Interesting track again. Very good percussion on it. The guitar work is amazing. Night Illusion. Like the start of this, it's got a nice rocky guitar to it. Like the distortion, great solo, good track. Then we get Percolations Part 1 and 2. My favourite track. Again, it's very Mike Oldfield in places. Love the vibraphone, love the timpani drums. It's just a really, really good track. My favourite on the album. Shadows Off. This is so progressive rock. It really reminds me of a cross between Camel Gentle Giant. Really good track. Enjoy that one. And Nuria, love Pierre's drumming on this. The sax is brilliant. It's just a great piece of modern jazz fusion. Then we got Muriel, a gentle piece of music. It's piano bar stuff time. Nice bit of jazzy guitar in this. An excellent album. I really like this album. It's got a nice mixture of progressive music and jazz fusion. Really strong album. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. And thank you for She You Can't Remind. I must have said something to trigger her off. Okay, then coming in at number 5, we have the 9th album and Pierre's last, Pentanine, 2004. So drums and vibraphones, xylophone, Pierre, bass is Alex Pelenshkov, and keyboards Michal Orbogov. Can't do no Russian. And electric guitar Ark Lady Kazenskov. First track on here is called A Flying High. Interesting. Got some really nice sound effects on this. Very quirky and a little bit different. And the second track is Airway to 7. Love the piano on this. Got a great guitar solo in it. Solid track. Great drumming from Pierre. Pentanine Part 1 is dominated by the vibraphone, which I love. Ushele, again a track that's got catchy vibraphones on it. A great bass line on this. Trip a la mode, the jazz guitar. I love jazz guitar. Really quirky. Some great drumming as ever. Reminiscence, one of those tracks I just don't find interesting. It goes round and round and round and nothing ever happens. Interlude is just 30 seconds of guitar sounds. Classique, my favourite track on here. Just everything about it is rich sound, some lovely percussion. Love the vibraphone on this. I just love everything on it. It's just a great track. Then we get La Cour, another quirky song, great beat. Vibraphone's good on it, really good. Bleu Nuit Peter, awesome. Lots of half beats on the drums. Vibraphone is vibrant. Pentanine Part 2, very short, but continuing on from that Part 1. Again, the vibraphone is very dominant on that track. Montana's muted trumpet really adds to this. It's a little jazzy thing. Then we get Troika. Again, reminds me so much of Mike Oldfield. I probably think this is why this is my favourite incarnation of Gong. It reminds me so much of some of the work that Mike Oldfield done. Another great album. Again, I really enjoy this album, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay then, coming in at number 4, we have the 8th album, released in 1988, called Second Wind. On here we've got Pierre Moerlen on drums and synthesizer, Gazeuse on acoustic guitars and electric guitars, Hansford Rowe on bass guitar, Alex Sanguinetti on drums, Frank Fischer on piano, Staffan Traub on the vibraphone and synthesizer, Pierre Moerlen on vibraphone, synthesizer and marimba, and Simon Peroma on percussion. First track is the title track called Second Wind. Starts off again with another of those great vibraphone sounds and lovely keyboards mixed in. Great track. Time and Space. This song is so different. The moods, it starts off gentle, gets aggressive, gentle. Really good solo in it. Say No More. What I like about this incarnation of Gong is the experimental jazz fusion. It's got some lovely tones on this, and this got some lovely xylophone on it. Absolutely amazing. Deep End, very, very gentle song. It's got some Christmassy bells on it. It sounds really good. Quite a good track. Crystal Funk, one of my favourite tracks with vibraphones on it. It's just dominated by that lovely crisp sound. Exotic, another of these quirky tracks, different types of percussion on here. Incredible bunch of musicians on this track. Benton, great drumming from Pierre, and then we got the really strong sound of the vibraphone again. Allen Key, this is the sort of thing that you'd get in a jazz bar. Lovely piece of piano work. And then we get this thing called Crash and Code. Basically it's 15 minutes of Pierre playing the drums. Okay, he's a good drummer, but I don't want to hear 15 minutes of it. So ignoring the 15 minutes of the drumming from Pierre, the rest of the album is superb. It's one that I love listening to, except Crash and Co. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 3, we've got the 6th album from 1986 called Breakthrough. Musicians on this one are Pierre Moerlen on synthesizers, vibraphone, xylophone, timpani drums, vocals, Dag the wrestling acoustic guitar, Hansford Rowe the bass, Mikhail Zukla Chapman stick, Gazeuse electric guitars, Nina Anderson saxophone and Lena Anderson vocals. Breakthrough, my favourite track on this. I love all the different sounds coming through. Some great sort of echoey sound. The vocal, now this is the first time we've heard vocals and it really works. It's a really strong song. I like that. Spaceship Disco, the keyboards are in this, brilliant, and you get this lovely sort of vocal noise from Lena Anderson. Terrific track. Rockin' 7, brilliant stuff here. Could have been should have been like a theme or a soundtrack on a movie. Brilliant track. 6/8, dominated by Lena Anderson's vocal. It's a stunning guitar solo on that. Poitoire, the bass is really good, keeps everything together, and you got this vibraphone and keyboard swirling around that bass line. Children's Dreams, it's probably the weakest track on the album. I'm not very keen on that. Portrait, singing in French, makes it really good. I've always got this fascination of the French language. It's sort of so emotional. Really adds to that. The Road Out, it's okay. It's not the, again, it's one of the weaker ones. Romantic Punk, very short track, but really strong. Far East, it's got that Far East vibe to it with vibraphones on top. Really good. Another excellent album. Lena Anderson's vocal and her vocal sort of voice really adds to it. Enjoyable album. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay then, coming in at number 2, we've got the third album. It's released in 1979 and it's called Downwind. On here we've got Pierre Moerlan on drums, vibraphone, marimba and everything else that usually plays. Benoit Moerlen on vibraphone, Hansford Rowe on bass, Francois Gazeuse on percussion, Ross Record guitars. We have former member of Gong, Didier Malherbe on saxophone. Additional personnel, we've got Didier Lockwood on violin, Mike Oldfield on guitars, bass and Irish drum, Steve Winwood on synthesizer, Terry Oldfield, Mike's brother, on the flute, and Mick Taylor on the guitar. First track is Aeroplane. Any track that starts off with Hammond organ is a winner for me. Love the vocal on that, absolutely brilliant track. Cross Currents, love Pierre's drumming on this. Some nice violin on here, solid work from Didier Lockwood, and such a good solo on here. Then we get my favourite track on here, Downwind. This is brilliant. It is obviously my favourite track because there's a certain Mr. Oldfield playing on the guitars. You know it's Mike Oldfield. He does a brilliant drum on here. You've got his brother Terry playing the flutes. It's one of the best things Gong ever did. All I can say, you got two great musicians working on here and it worked well. It's a brilliant track. It is my favourite track by Pierre Moerlen's Gong. Then we got this thing called Jingo Là-Bas. Just annoys me. It's good. Don't like the drumming on this, but I like the keyboard. Is quite quirky. What do you know? Another good track. The guitar work here is from Mick Taylor. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get Emotions. That combination of the vibraphone and violin works perfectly on this track. Then we get Ecstasia. Very good progressive rock track. Absolutely brilliant guitar work. Brilliant album. Wish him and Mike Oldfield had done more together. But it's a brilliant album. Some great musicians play on this. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.8. So my number 1 album is the 4th album by the band. It was released in 1979 and it is called Time Is the Key. On here we have got Pierre Moerlen, Hansford Rowe, Bob Lagoza, Alan Holsworth's on here, Daryl Ways on violin, Joe Kirby acoustic bass, Peter Lemaire on keyboards, and Nico Rasman does guitars. First track on here is my favourite and it's called Ardna Grain, which is probably not the way I pronounce it. I'll get told off because it's Irish for Height of the Sun. An amazing piece of music, vibraphones. I don't know if Mike Oldfield had any influence on this, but It sounds like it, especially from them timpani drums. Really great piece of music. Earthrise, the percussion on this is really good. I love the bells. Really adds to this track. Then we get Supermarket, some lovely quirky vibraphone here. Excellent. Fairy Steps, progressive here. With, instead of got guitar, we've got more vibraphone. Very good. An American in England, an interesting track with the effect. The guitar effects are brilliant on that. And then we get a track called The Organ Grinder. Love the bass on this. It's really quirky, some nice sounds on it. Very foot tapping stuff, that is. Sugar Street, the funky guitar on this. And one of Pierre's best drumming performances. Brilliant. The Blender, a great rock track here. The guitar is absolutely amazing. Funky stuff. It's one of these, sounds more like a 70s cop show from America sort of thing. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get Arabesque into Arab intro and Arabesque. Again, that keyboard in that intro is brilliant. Then you get this jazzy guitar. Very good. Insurer 2, awesome drumming here from Pierre. The keyboard really does add to it. Time is the Key. Now this reminds me of something that you'd half expect on a Rick Wakeman album. The piano is, the keyboards are very Rick Wakeman on this. Terrific way to end the album. This is my one of my favourite Gong albums of all the incarnations of Gong. There isn't a bad track on this one. It's got the mixture of great stuff. It's got like influences of Mike Oldfield, Rick Wakeman, Alan Parsons. I can see all these sort of sounds of other bands I like. It's a brilliant album, and I'm glad I've got this in my collection now. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. This is my favourite incarnation of Gong, without a doubt. All these albums are pretty good. There isn't a real bad one amongst them, really. Every album has got good tracks on it. Okay, I've really enjoyed this one. We've got part 5 on Friday. We're going to have a look at Planet Gong. They only made one album, and it was a live album. And we're going to be having a look at that on Friday. Okay, classic album we got next, and it is to have a look at the album Avalon by Roxy Music. Their most popular, but is it their best? We will find out. So join me for that later. Bye for now.